You'll know if you should buy this in the next 48 seconds. The combat in Lost Soul Aside rules most of the time. It's fast, expressive, there's plenty of freedom to route from ground to air and back again, and cash out with a big finish. But the package around it stumbles. Thin story, embarrassing voice acting, pacing bloat, strange design decisions, and more bugs than Kissimmee in August. Things like stutter, crashes, AI breaking, and soft locks. Soft locks in 2025. On PS5 and PS5 Pro, I hear it hits the intended 60 FPS without too many issues. On PC though, performance and frame time consistency undercut any hope of flow you might have, and regardless of platform, enemies are needlessly tanky, like they wanted to stretch out combo potential artificially and couldn't come up with a better idea. If you're on PS5, want pure character action highs, can ignore all the places it drops the ball and blow your nose with $60, go for it, I guess. If you're on PC, or you prefer to be a bit more choosy with your entertainment dollars, it's more of a wait and see what patches and discounts bring at best. Now, if all you wanted is that TLDR, cool, thanks. Appreciate you sticking around. Before you go, hit the YouTube buttons and drop a comment so the platform will show the video to more people and they can get what they're after without having to wait through someone rambling long enough to reach the next ad break. If you're new here, hi, I'm Squid. I cover action shooter titles, and the rule here is maximum meaningful info with minimum reaction faces. And usually I'm not this cranky. I bet my ears are really red right now. So let's look at why the highs are real and why the lows matter. Lost Soul Aside released on August 28th, 2025 for PC and PS5, PS5 Pro at $60 or your regional equivalent at the time of this recording. First and foremost, we need to answer the question of how does it feel to play, second to second. And Lost Soul Aside is a character action game with an RPG coat of paint. You've got weapon swaps, perfect dodges, blocks, stagger, meter burn, supers, and more combos than a 7-Eleven in the 90s. The appeal here is expression, chaining cancels and reroutes to dance on foes' faces, rather than watching your equipment load to avoid fat rolling or sitting through canned QTEs. The skill ceiling here is legit. Once it clicks, you can improvise flashy sequences that look scripted, but aren't. That rule of cool ethos from the 2016 trailer did actually make it into the final product. And when the combat flows, it flows well. I have minimal complaints about the combo system or weapon swapping. It's good. That said, it does feel like it's flashy for being flashy's sake, and there often isn't adequate differentiation between the impact of different moves on the things you're fighting to warrant hitting your head on that skill ceiling. More on that later. There are moments where inputs feel stiffer than they look. When that happens, the animation fireworks tend to outrun the tactile feel. Platforming is rigid, and maybe this is a skill issue on my part, but there wasn't a meaningful way to intuit my health based on the flow of combat, received hit feedback, or changes to facets of the UI without looking at the bottom left 12th of my screen every few seconds, which generally isn't conducive to maintaining that amount of health in a game with narrow windows. So if the swordplay is that good when it works, why is the overall reception mixed? At the time of this record, I believe it's sitting at 56% mixed on Steam. Well, the short answer is because while the combat is hot, the scaffolding behind the scenes often doesn't carry it. Hey, you into this kind of breakdown so far? You know what to do. So in terms of graphics and audio, it really is eye candy with an uneven finish. As for the overall visual spread, some arenas and bosses are stunning. The semi-open world areas actually look pretty. Overall, it's shiny. On the other hand, other spaces, including the early hub, look kinda bare, or generously speaking, Xbox 360, which tends to widen the gap between the peaks and valleys and plateaus, and I don't know, it just feels inconsistent. In terms of the score, there's big, bombastic, Final Fantasy-flavored swells that prop up scenes the script can't. It's one of the more consistently strong elements. On to the voice acting. The English voice acting is bad. Your characters bounce between flat and cringe. Thinking maybe it might be better in the writing's native language, I swapped to Mandarin, and it's better, but that's a bit of a low bar, and it was still kind of mid. Now, to be fair, my Mandarin's kind of rusty, so feel free to sound off in the comments if I'm just wrong here. I can't speak to the Japanese VA, because I don't speak Japanese. Let us know. For broader staging, outside of boss intros or a few cinematics here or there, many story beats land as static exchanges between characters just one step removed from 2D portraits, which tends to drag pacing and feels more at home again in the Xbox 360 era. Overall, it looks and sounds the part most of the time, until the engine coughs. As for performance and settings, I've not played the game on console because I refuse to spend an additional 6 burritos on this title, but from what I've seen floating around, it seems to be okay-ish on both the base PS5 and Pro. Like I said, I don't have first-hand experience with this, so drop info in the comments to help people be aware and make reasonably informed purchasing decisions. Now on PC, for perspective, I'm running this on a 4090 with a 7800 X3D, 64 gigs of RAM, and it's installed on an NVMe. Okay. There are notable stutters around transversal and cutscenes, inconsistent frame times and frame pacing despite holding a high frame rate, occasional crashes, notable FPS drops, entering and exiting menus, and some particularly hectic moments. I thought that might have something to do with global illumination and ray tracing, but even with that completely disabled, those drops still happen. Now, to be fair, the devs have acknowledged that some of the pre-rendered 4K 30 videos are a stutter vector. Optimizations for that, among other things, are reportedly in progress. So this is normally the part of the video where I'd go through the graphical settings and suggest specific tweaks to settings both in-game and out to wring any meaningful performance you can out of the title. But frankly, there seemed negligible difference on my system for most settings, and the overall experience was sufficiently mediocre that the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. Wait for patches. Now for the part that wears you down over hours, not minutes. Systems, pacing, and encounter design, or where momentum ends. So there's a standard exploration and hub affair. You got a corridor and arena loop with bare-bones docks hubs and like subdimension areas. There's really few reasons to hang around between missions outside of collecting the various shinies. Maybe collecting screenshots if you're someone who cares about that. Progression flavor, on the other hand, is decent. Loadouts, weapon variety are on the upside here. Each weapon plays differently, and you can swap instantly mid-combo through this like nifty little time dilation, quick flick mechanic. It's cool. However, some might consider spreading your XP around so you can level each weapon and keep them roughly equivalent while you figure out which one you like best. A bit of a progression tax. And the accessory ornaments, which add minuscule stats to gear, while cool conceptually, tend to look awkward in-game. Now, you can fix that by scaling them down so they fit inside the weapon model, but it's not great when the solution to one of the systems is, well, just hide that part of the game, bro. Boss cadence is a thing of all time. The game tends towards boss heavy, and while I don't consider this inherently a problem, I mean, after all, Wukong did that, and I loved that game, here the duration of each fight and questionable feelings of peril mean victories blur together. Staging becomes repetition instead of escalation. On screen, we have the first fight with a significant NPC. Here I am talking about avoiding spoilers in a title that's absolutely mediocre and has no meaningful story. Habit, I guess. But as you can see in the exchanges, I'm basically just button mashing and maybe hitting a third of my dodges because I don't care. And my health bar doesn't really move. I think I used one healing item on this entire fight, maybe two. So as a rule, the bosses actually feel less threatening than some of the random crunchy number 87's mechanics that you'll encounter along the way. It's peculiar. Now, as you get into the mid-game mechanics, many encounters tend to lean on no meaningful damage until you stagger them, which pads time to kill rather than building tension. Again, I feel like this was an effort to give the 0.01% of players who combo infinitely a chance to flex. And honestly, it kind of falls flat even while trying to do that. Now, I was actually keeping up with chat mid-boss fight while streaming the other day at no meaningful detriment, and usually bosses in these kinds of games tend to require my full attention. On top of that, there's some questionable moments of level sprawl. Certain chapters run far longer than their ideas. They come with minimal scenery shifts, and when inputs feel a little bit rigid already, particularly while platforming, the length tends to amplify the drag. Additionally, the save point system makes some peculiar choices, both in terms of where they're placed and their propensity for soft-locking sections. God, it was annoying. As well as reverting literally everything about the game state to that point where you interacted with the save point itself. I mean, I get that it's a design choice. It does feel outdated for the current landscape of games and gaming and the quality of life we've come to expect, even amongst things like Soulslikes. Realistically, this is tick box number 7 as an example of individual solutions that went towards the most efficient path possible, almost as to suggest that the entire thing is a cautionary tale as to why programmers shouldn't do game design. Overall, it's fun moment to moment and exhausting in marathons. What about how well the story keeps you invested in what's going on? So you continue blenderizing the next bad guys on the list. Spoiler alert, the overall story and presentation doesn't. An initially intriguing arc of a promising rebellion versus empire setup where you do with terrorism. It has very like Final Fantasy VII vibes. However, that setup quickly gives way to a fetch 5 things to save a family member structure that sidelines meaningful character work. We've all seen this story before. We've all played this story before. It's there, I guess. As to the delivery of said story, long stretches are text box stand-ups rather than acted scenes. And without stronger direction, beats land soft. Really, there's nothing else to add here. I forgive a lot in Spectacle Fighters in terms of story. Like I called out in my recent Shinobi video up there, and this fails to even flop catatonically over that bar at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. So given all of that, who is this for? And more importantly, is it worth 5 burritos? Realistically, the most intellectually honest answer I can give here is an expansion of what I said in the TLDR. Both of these assume that you're just here for the gameplay. If you're a story first person, just no. Just no, don't do it. You will regret everything. All right, that in mind. If you're on PS5 or PS5 Pro, sure, reasonably stable 60 sells the fantasy. You're here to lab encounters and style on bosses, and that's what you get. If you're willing to overlook the 4 out of 10s everywhere else and $60 isn't an amount you really think about, go for it. Otherwise, wait for a discount or pick it up used. Now, for PC players, I can't recommend it in good faith right now. If my system gets cranky about it sometimes, I can only imagine what mid-range rig's struggles are. With its current state, and assuming the best in terms of potential positive patches to fix the technical side and encounter balancing, it's a $30 to $40 game. I have no idea what they were thinking trying to sell this at full price. This smacks of mismanagement and corporate greed. Let me be abundantly clear here. This is one of only 2 titles I am legitimately upset at having passed the Steam refund window over the past year. I generally don't refund games. I really wish I hadn't gone past the 2-hour mark this time. And I think that says a lot. So if you want more reviews like this, clean, honest, zero fluff, usually calmer, hit the buttons. It helps more people dodge the rage bait garbage and find stuff that's actually useful. What are your thoughts? Am I overly sensitive to frame pacing? Do you also find things particularly mid and uninspired? Does it not matter and you're just here for silly long combos and enemies that let you beat on them for a while so you can hit said silly long combos? Drop a comment. I've been Bald Squid. I'll see you next time. I'm gonna go find some ibuprofen or something.